We have a new Tony Parker and Manu Ginóbili right now, and literally what we are seeing from Steph Castle and Dylan Harper as the Spurs advance to the Western Conference Finals to take on Oklahoma City, the team they are 4-1 against. Now, obviously, it was pretty much like a breeze, I would say, for San Antonio, and this is their first run of playoff experience, and that's a scary thing. Obviously, against Portland, pretty easy matchup. Lower level talent, a very nice matchup for them, especially with, again, the Victor problem. And then you also just have what was a pretty easygoing series for them in the second round against Minnesota, a team that, obviously Minnesota had a ton of physical and athletic intensity at them, but the San Antonios bring more waves of that. And then obviously just the Victor Wembanyama matchup problem and the lack of versatility of Minnesota's surrounding stars like Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert, that kind of wreaked havoc with Victor Wembanyama on the floor continuously the entire series. And if it wasn't for the game 4 ejection, who knows what it would have been like. And obviously, for Castle and Dylan Harper, these are the two shining stars that we are looking at, to guys that are going to be surrounding Victor Wembanyama for his future years of contention. And Steph Castle's spot, at the start of the year, we would have been thinking Steph Castle's spot is relatively unsafe compared to Dylan Harper's, because obviously they have De'Aaron Fox. They've paid De'Aaron Fox all this money. But to be honest, right now, it seems like this trio is pretty set for the future from literally what we are seeing right now from Steph Castle. And in terms of just matchup resilience, that's one of the factors that you need to look at when you're looking at foundational star power. And that's the thing with Minnesota that I've been thinking about. Obviously, Anthony Edwards, matchup resilient in theory for what he does as a pure scorer. But surrounding that, Rudy Gobert, not the most matchup resilient guy in terms of teams that can actually space him out with a bit more athleticism, space him out the 5 spot, throw a bit more speed at that 5 spot compared to a Nikola Jokic, more that physically imposing build where Rudy has actual success against. He struggles in that matchup. Obviously, teams with a ton of interior defense as well that can actually, apply more ball pressure on their low drop coverages against the ball handler, and they can kind of leave Rudy Gobert, rotate over because Rudy's hands aren't exceptionally great. Julius Randle, not the most matchup resilient guy either, because he actually struggles handling the ball against these pesky point of attack defenses. So basically, what you have to look for is guys that can thrive against a multitude of different matchups. And Steph Castle, maybe with the shot touch being pretty iffy, you would have thought maybe against a team like an Oklahoma City, he would struggle, trying to get ball pressure, but dribble penetration against another team like Minnesota, a team with a ton of length and a ton of that physical motor between guys like Idasun, Naz Reid. But honestly, he had no trouble as well, and the shot-making pieces come through a ton for him in this postseason. And neither of these guys, obviously Harper's a rookie and Steph Castle's in his second year in the pros, and neither of these guys have yet to hit a wall. And yes, it's only the first 2 rounds, and again, you need to win 4 rounds of playoff basketball, but typically first round is when you'll see some troubles start to come up to the surface, but neither of these guys have had any trouble, and their impact has been absolutely tremendous next to what Victor Wembanyama does. And what is so important about what these 2 guys bring specifically, and obviously De'Aaron Fox might be in a vacuum the second best player on this team, but just zooming into these 2 guys, because these are the foundation blocks for the future next to Victor. De'Aaron, we're not too sure just yet. But in terms of the impact and what they bring for Victor and how they complement Victor in general, Wemby isn't the type of guy that's going to assert himself as a scorer right now. He's not physically imposing enough. He can't generate these super comfortable pull-up jump shots with ease, because again, he can get knocked off balance pretty well. If you play him at his base really strong, you can actually affect those looks and affect the efficiency and the quality of those face-up elbow jumpers, the post-ups that he might go for. And Wemby likes to attack as a driver. And similar to OKC, this Spurs team likes to drive and attack you to death continuously with their waves of physical athleticism and the waves of ball handling coordination that they have between Steph Castle, Dylan Harper, and De'Aaron Fox and Victor Wembanyama, especially when you might even have lineups where you might see 4 of those guys on at the same time. It's just waves of driving attacks. And Victor's no exception to that. He's a 7'5" center who likes to beat more centers with his mobility advantages there as well as a driver. Because again, he can't physically impose himself too much within the arc in these, playoff environments as such. But what Castle and Harper bring, again, is just more of that driving reliability, especially when Victor, as a driver, can get knocked off balance too. It's nice where Victor can impose himself as an off-ball force. as an off-ball fulcrum, spacing and rolling and using that gravity that he has both as a popper and roller continuously, and just having smart physical ball handlers who can protect the ball in traffic. That is the specific impact that both of these guys bring right now. And then there are also little bits of impact that these guys differentiate from each other. But just comparing to the Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili comparison, that's what we're going to be subtly getting into here. Obviously, the amount of resonance between those comparisons, it's not overly much. Like, obviously, if I compare Steph Castle to Manu Ginobili, there's a lot that differentiates them, obviously, as basketball players and their different strengths as well. Obviously, Manu thrived through more finesse and creativity and like footwork. Steph Castle kind of thrives through more of your just like physical athleticism, physical intensity, defensive ball pressure. And then obviously Dylan Harper, he brings a bit of that, agility, the creativity, the footwork that Manu brought. But I'd compare him more towards Tony Parker in terms of being able to gain that sustainable rim pressure and the rim pressure drives continuously. I think that's what he's going to be bringing in the future for San Antonio. But obviously they're very different, but I do want to zoom in quite to a small degree, but I want to zoom into those comps surrounding Victor for the future. But the fact is, neither of these guys have hit a wall these playoffs. Steph Castle's given you 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists on 56% effective field goal percentage. So he's been really reliably efficient right now as a basketball player. And the fact is, he's taking just under 5 threes a game. And in this postseason, he's making 44% of them and a ton of them off the catch. He just made 5 more yesterday in that closeout game against Minnesota. You can't leave him alone anymore. That coverage isn't viable anymore, and it's going to be interesting to see with OKC. Obviously, OKC can run teams off the three-point line much stronger as well. They kind of do that to a similar degree like San Antonio's defense does, and that will be a big differentiator compared to the Minnesota matchup. But the fact is, this guy's cashing in nearly 50% of his threes in the postseason, and he's got a ton of leg strength, ton of lift as well. So even in these tough, pesky environments, he can still get enough lift on those jumpers, enough stamina to get those to go. But with Castle, again, it's the physical athleticism. Like I've said that 50 times already in this little podcast, but in terms of the on and off on the margins as well. So whether it's on the ball, the physical athleticism as a driver continuously waves of attacking you through your chest continuously, or it's just the work on the margins with that physical athleticism, whether it's attacking the glass, diving for cuts as well, trying to, again, attack the ball off the glass. It's on the margins, whether it's trying to apply tons of ball pressure at the point of attack as well, trying to disturb 4 turnovers, force San Antonio into transition offense as well. So it's just work on the margins specifically as well, where he does apply that physical athleticism. And then it's also just, again, defensive physicality, like I mentioned, on the margins. That is extremely valuable because then you're applying 48 minutes of raw value to a team continuously. And when you're just hounding ball handlers at the point of attack, again, boosting your team in transition as well. You're, one of the better cutters in the NBA as well. Again, just passing on the margins. Like, this guy is like a surreal prospect right now. And obviously, he has the talent to be a primary ball handler in the future for a championship team. That is what this guy can carve himself out to be. But with how good Dylan Harper is, it seems a little bit harder in that aspect to see Castle take that primary ball handling option. But he's doing that right now, and he's doing that in a real way. Obviously, he might hit the wall against OKC. Obviously, Steph Castle, something he does really well is actually protecting the ball with his body. But obviously, against a team like Oklahoma City, that is a totally different landscape of matchup in terms of that dimension. But we'll have to see. Anyways, it's just been a terrific start from Steph Castle. And then you talk about the surreal shot making on the other end. And then Dylan Harper, 14 points, 5 rebounds, and 2 assists off the bench on 61% effective field goal percentage. Just brutally efficient basketball. Again, he's not really relying on the shot making. He actually dials the attempts down a lot. I think he's just taking just over 2 threes a game. Again, this is a point guard in the modern NBA too. But just brutally efficient because he's rim pressure focused throughout 48 full minutes. And he loves this role as more of this Energizer Bunny right now for San Antonio coming off the bench. And what he does beautifully is he applies a bit what Steph Castle and De'Aaron Fox both bring. Obviously, De'Aaron Fox, bouncy, agile frame. They're able to intercept these like tight angles towards the paint. That's what Dylan Harper brings. And then also he brings a bit more physicality than what De'Aaron Fox, leaning towards what Steph Castle brings downhill. And then obviously more defensive ball pressure. Again, like what Steph Castle brings. Again, he brings waves of what both of those guys like to do. Obviously, the shot making is a big notch tier down compared to those other two guys, especially with how well Castle's been literally making shots in this postseason. But for Harper, it's like the reliability to just literally trust your rookie point guard to just run continuous, sustainable ball screens. And he's going to deliver real valuable offense. In the postseason, Dylan Harper's been one of the best pick and roll ball handlers in basketball. 1.19 points per possession. Absolutely elite as a rookie. I think he's in the 85th percentile as well for transition efficiency as well. So this is a guy just, again, sustainable rim pressure attacks. A guy that also exerts himself, again, on the margins as well, minimally. Like, this is a guy that gets you 5 rebounds a game at your point guard position as well. He fights off ball. He moves off ball too. He provides value off ball, even though he isn't the most quality shooter in the NBA. Again, he just stabilizes your entire athleticism off the bench in terms of that ball handling role. And that just gives the Spurs this truly overwhelming 48-minute burst of just, again, raw driving athleticism continuously. And then obviously when you go towards the comparisons between these two guys, like the way I look at it, right now, you might be viewing Dylan Harper more in that Manu Ginobili role in terms of the Energizer Bunny off the bench, providing just super efficient offense as well. And then obviously a bit of that two-way stability like Manu did provide for the most part of his career. But in terms of the future, like Steph Castle's future comp to me reaches more towards that Manu Ginobili range as well. Obviously, again, he's probably in that Tony Parker role with the primary ball handling option. But in terms of just the physical package, like that gives him more of that Manu-esque role. Again, what Manu brought to the game was a ton of just versatility of his impact. And with Steph Castle, like the shot making is coming along right now. The closeout attacking burst as well, just attacking off spot ups, just that overall spot up versatility, that's coming together for him. Again, electrifying intensity that he plays with on both ends of the floor. Very Manu-esque, and he plays with real flair. He does actually play with real flair as well as a penetration driver to a degree. This guy, like coming in, he's not Dylan Harper. Dylan Harper is a totally different prospect when it comes to the driving agility. But this guy's one of the most agile drivers that you'll find in the NBA in terms of literally just changing pace and changing direction as well. He doesn't do it to the degree that Dylan Harper does it to, but he like applies more power and understands still how to throw around his weight through the defender's chest continuously. So he plays with a lot of flair to a degree as well. And he is relatively smart. Not the same in terms of just sustainable like decision making, like what you saw from Dylan Harper, but that reaches into literally what Manu Ginobili brought, just real flair and like just electrifying intensity off the bench or just in more of a back-seated role. That's what I see for Steph Castle going forward, and a bit more hyper focus into what he can do defensively. That'll be what makes a ton of his career come down the future, because I just don't think he's going to be the same ball handling guard that Dylan Harper projects to be. And then for Harper, like in terms of my comp for Parker, again, right now, probably more in that Manu role, especially when people say, oh, he's coming off the bench right now as well as the bench ball handling option. But he poses, again, the stronger primary ball handler upside compared to Steph Castle, and that gives him what I think will be the Tony Parker of this Spurs era. And it's because he like brings more of a clearly defined superior trait. Again, Steph Castle brings a ton of agility, a ton of power, a ton of strength, and a ton of balance to the game. But Dylan Harper, just in terms of his superior trait, like it is absurdly elite as a prospect right now. And it's the agility, like the raw agility mix of attacking angles downhill. And like this guy's footwork speed and like the change of his footwork pace and direction, the fluidity of his body coming downhill at multitude of different angles continuously. Again, that angle attacking variety, that is a superior trait. He brings more of a nimble frame than Steph Castle too, so he can eventuate those angles when he hunts them. And he has a strong sense for power distribution, similar to Steph Castle, but he does it in more of a fast, accelerating approach. And that is his superior trait. And that's why I think he's ball handling, and again, the rim pressure attacks, it poses as more sustainable continuously, because I just don't think teams are going to be able to guard this in the future as well, especially as the dude gets stronger and just more explosive through his lower body. And in terms of just the shot-making base, compared to Steph Castle at this point last year, it is stronger right now as well. And so the fact is, like in the modern NBA, you do need to like beat teams with pull-up shooting. I don't love the mechanics overly much, but he is a better shot maker than this point, like we saw than Castle last year. And that poses him better for a primary offensive role for the modern NBA. And then also like Parker, again, it's just all about the reliability of your ability to gain dribble penetration, effective dribble penetration, get clear paint touches continuously. That's what Tony Parker brought to the entire Spurs dynasty. And that's what Dylan Harper is going to bring for the future of this San Antonio Spurs core. And obviously, you know, Parker's dribble penetration was less about strength and bully ball and explosiveness. Literally all the traits that make Steph Castle really effective as a rim pressure. That's not really the same as Dylan Harper's approach. Again, so that's why I'm making that differentiation. Dylan Harper just brings a little bit of what Steph Castle does, again, with all the physical explosiveness, but he matches that with a bit more of that methodical approach to his rim pressure. It is a really exciting time for San Antonio. And like when you look at the actual big three comp all together, like literally the potential for this Spurs grouping is higher than what we saw from Duncan, Ginóbili, and Tony Parker. Obviously, longevity of that group was absolutely nuts because their chemistry throughout their entire, 16, 17-year partnership, whatever it was between those three guys specifically, that was absurd. And you don't know in the modern NBA, obviously, guys, it's sometimes hard to retain your array of star talent across the roster. But if these three guys stay together for as long as the Duncan, Ginóbili, Parker duo stayed together for, like, their ceiling is substantially higher. And a lot of it is just because of the defensive like havoc that they can cause at the point of attack, playing in gap help with a guy like Dylan Harper and the length that he brings to the game, the physical motor to disturb the best isolation scorers on the planet, which Steph Castle poses too, the ability to get in transition with athletes like that. And then obviously you have the greatest defensive talent in NBA history. Obviously Tim Duncan might be a top 5 defender in NBA history. Victor Wembanyama's talent is above that. So in terms of just the actual ceiling for these guys, it really starts on the defensive end as well. And then these are just high IQ basketball players with really strong skill curves that they are already on pace with, tracking on. Like in terms of the shot making from Steph Castle, like as a literal prospect, I think he made 28% of his threes in college. And now he's making 44% to start his first ever postseason run in year 2. So in terms of like the skill curve, it's coming along. But again, like Ginóbili, Parker, and Tim Duncan, these are high IQ basketball players who are just way more athletically empowered. And the skill curve, it will probably match what those three brought relative to their times even. And it's mostly about the two-way foundation on both ends of the floor that differentiates what we are seeing from this current Wemby, Castle, Harper trio core. And obviously Wemby as the fulcrum on both ends as well, similar to how Tim Duncan was. And it's a really exciting time. I don't know what's going to happen against OKC. Genuinely, it's probably like a 50-50 odds. If not, maybe just because I still believe SGA is the better player than Victor Wembanyama. Maybe 55% lean towards OKC. But it's a really exciting time right now for San Antonio fans. This is your first ever playoff series. When OKC, like this formation of OKC, hit their first playoff series, it was a second round exit against the Luka Doncic-led Mavs. This team's already in the conference finals, and they're the second favorite to probably win the title, and they might even be the favorite with just how well they match up against Oklahoma City right now. So if you're a Spurs fan, enjoy it, and enjoy literally the next 10 to 15 plus years of this trio probably reaching what the past homegrown dynasty did between Duncan, Parker, and Ginóbili. It's only 10 years apart as well. You guys are very lucky fans. And I hope you guys appreciated this episode, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.